Hey, 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 it's Filter Free Friday, y'all. Listen, I am so glad y'all here. I used to explain how I found my way into diversity, equity, and inclusion. It wasn't the traditional route. It wasn't that I had been studying sociology or anti-racism or any of that. It was that I was an engineer working in Leavenworth County, Kansas, in rural, with rural folks from rural areas who were almost all male. I think I might have been the only woman in the who there was another woman there, but she happened to be lesbian. There also was no one there who was under 30, and I was under 25. They had been in their jobs for longer than I had been alive. And and in addition to all of that, child, I was brown. But what I noticed was that what we tend to think of as a diversity problem is almost always the things you can see: race, gender, sexual orientation, age. But what was getting in our way as a engineering team, was communication style. It was not race, gender, sexual orientation. And I'm not saying those things don't matter. What I'm saying was what was getting in our way was communication style. What was getting in our way was how we made decisions. What was getting in our way was that we thought about change very differently from each other. And we certainly dealt with conflict differently. And so, no matter what is going on in the world, and I know it might not be wise for the empathy revolutionary to talk about DEI, but I'm telling you, some of the issues that we are struggling with, and I'll just talk about the stuff that I've seen this week, are diversity, are diversity problems. You know, I have a really good, I think he's the good friend in the body of Christ. And he wrote a book. And the cover of the book a couple years ago was like all of the historical characters they were white and they had blonde hair. I called him right away. I was like, "Hey, listen, I thought that." Well, I think I commented, "That's an interesting cover," and he was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't think about it. Right? I just like classical art, so this is what I used." He talked to the printer to see if they could change it. It was too late. But then, you know, you think about how the energy, the passion, the commitment has rolled away from us talking about difference. He comes out with a new book this week. And guess what's on the cover? The same thing. Now, do I think he's hateful? No. Do I think he knows better? I kind of do. But when you've got the same kind of people around you all the time, nobody's going to look at that cover and say, "Hey, do something different." I sit on a board, a piece of marketing materials about to come out this week. Every single person on the staff, it represents the same demographic. Now, when I say the difference is not just about what you can see, here's when I say you need to think about it from a conflict standpoint, a change standpoint, that and those kinds of things, is because I am the person to reach out and be like, "What is that?" When some people are very much like, "Let it go." Even when I was talking about the ice this week with my brother, I didn't share all the background about, what was going on with my brother. I love my brother. I know my brother loves me. He ain't trying to be offensive when he tells me to bring ice to the cookout. But what he does do is think I can't cook. And so in the comments section, what I saw were all these people who their personality type is harmonious, is accepting, is not very critical. It is about empathy and compassion, trying to step in the shoes of the other person to see a different point of view. That ain't my that ain't my style. My style is logical, reasonable, critical, and questioning. That is the issue of diversity. And so what happened was, I love my brother, but when he told me to bring ice to the cookout, I was like, listen, I almost called him a name. In fact, I think I did in the most loving way possible. I was like, "What you talking about, bruh? I can cook the big three, not can cook. My auntie let me be in her kitchen in Mississippi making cornbread dressing, macaroni and cheese, and potato salad." Now, here's what I don't expect in homogenous situations based on what you can see. I don't expect naturally for Black people to not to be like, "Well, maybe he was just trying to relieve you of your pressure. Somebody got to bring ice. We need ice for the drinks." Girl, listen, it highlighted for me again the diversity issue. So backstory is, when I asked him, what are you talking about? He actually said, "Girl, you can't cook." And I said, "You know what? You right." he also added, he was like, well, the girls are bringing this and the boys are doing this. And so it was clear to me then at that moment that he was putting me in my birth order. 6th child of 7. I'm the one who's always being cared for. I ain't never been the one out here not cooking in my immediate family. They do the cooking. Even when they come over here, they make my plate and bring it to me and ask me what I want. It's the most wonderful thing. When they leave, it seems like ain't nobody been here. They take care of everything. My oldest sister, sometimes, the last time she was here, my kitchen was cleaner when she left than when she got here. And I had cleaning service. So this is not about love for my brother. It is about, in the comment section, I recognized, I am thinking that because we share the same visual appearances at times, because I did some explaining in that post, right? I did some explaining in that post to help people understand Black culture, and that in Black culture, when someone brings ice, asks you to bring ice, that means you can't cook. That's what that means. Now, could there be other meaning? Yeah, if your personality type is one in which you try to look for the points of agreement versus the points of disagreement. But what I didn't put in that post was that the man told me he thought I couldn't cook. And so my question is, do we assume positive intent in every single circumstance? Or do we also need a different or a diverse point of view that often says, nah, based on my experiences, that ain't what this is? And the reason I bring it up is because I think we are overcorrecting. We do too much sometimes to be like dominant culture, which says that when things are horribly egregious and wrong, that we just go, let's be emotionally intelligent and figure out the best way to say this. And then when things are like subtly wrong, we want to like go all in. Because the people who are sitting here telling me that I need to assume positive intent about this, are we telling our commander-in-chief that he needs to assume positive intent for people who are from shithole countries? I just rubbed this oil in on my face. And so the work that I am doing for myself right now is, my job as it relates to communication is recognizing that God made me critical, logical, reasonable, and I'm not boasting about it. It just means that sometimes my work is to try not to be critical. I practiced many times this week when there were situations and circumstances where I was like, I'm gonna bring this up, you gonna know, and I'm gonna tell you about the stuff that ain't working. My God work to do is to work on being more harmonious and agreeable. That's my work to do. But for those of y'all who've been lulled into sleep, always looking for harmony and agreement, your work to do is, as my grandmother would say, stop being a no backbone having jellyfish and speak up sometime. Because my brother now knows that I can cook. And for those, listen, I'm not going to spend my time in general. This is not about my brother. I love my brother. He was not trying to throw shade. He really didn't think I could cook. But the point of that post was to say, when somebody does not recognize your value, honey, don't be running around here trying to choose to be right when you choosing to be effective is better. It is easier to stop by the stove and get a 50-pound bag of ice. And that's what I did that day. He and his girlfriend came over here, honey. They bought me a crock pot. They done showed me how to make pot roast. You know whose pot roast recipe I have? Sister Gertrude Price's. Because the way my mind works, when my mama was in the kitchen treating it like art, tossing the stuff into a bowl, I'm standing right there with tablespoons and teaspoons, standing right there with measuring cups, saying, okay, hold on, Mom, before you throw that in there, put it in here. Because some stuff that we think is art is actually science. And Sister Gertrude Price's cornbread dressing recipe. I have Sister Gertrude Price's potato salad recipe. And I have Sister Gertrude Price's macaroni and cheese recipe. Now, don't tell nobody, but Patti LaBelle's Over the Rainbow macaroni and cheese is even better than my mother's. Don't tell nobody. But the point of this is, as we are sitting around thinking that diversity is about everything we can see, and it is, right? Anti-racism is not DEI. These organizations, including the ones I love, including the pastor with the really light historical figures on the cover, including my board that got about to put out this document that ain't got a single brown person in it. Yes, yes, diversity means that. But part of the reason why we gonna come back and say, "Oh, wish we could do something different here," is because the difference related to how people think about change and conflict and decision making and communication, they matter, honey. And while you sitting around with people just going, yes, that's right. You better hope somebody on the team got the energy, passion, and commitment to give you a different point of view before you keep putting stuff out there and alienate half of the folk that, or some of the folk who would possibly be people who would support you. You know, I don't know, maybe as an empathy revolutionary, I shouldn't be talking about this, but I'm like, there's a portion of this that I think in 2020, folks were like, oh yeah, let me learn this. And I don't think we were learning it. There's no such thing as a person who is just the norm. You put two people together, you're gonna have difference present. So this idea that we like against diversity just is. Diversity is of God. You try to grow a garden and just plant the same thing in the same place over and over and over again. Eventually, your soil is going to be depleted and you can't grow nothing there. That's not how nature works. And for the folks who are like, well, you got to prove what you're saying. I'm telling you right now, did you marry somebody who just like you? Are you and your friends just alike? Are you and your siblings just alike? And the answer to that question is no. And so sometimes when we're trying to figure out the ROI of stuff, I'm like, what's the ROI of your mama? You can't prove the ROI of everything. Some stuff you just know. It's kind of like how my mama in the kitchen going woof, 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 woof. She just knows. And I could sit up there and be like, well, the way she doing it, her experience and the bowl she used, that ain't gonna work. Well, I'm telling you, having a different group of people around you is helpful to your productivity. Now, there are people who have proven it for years. I refuse because you know it in the way that you live your own life. Those of you who have children, treat your children exactly the same. You're going to be in therapy for years. One of the reasons why I got one child is because I didn't want to have to differentiate my parents and staff for all these different people. I don't want to do that. That's how my parents try to do that. And it's very difficult work. Some of you all do it flawlessly. Others of you, I can tell who your favorite is just looking at your social media thread. You got it down. And so what's the main point I'm trying to make here is that while we are trying to say, don't use the word difference, don't use the word fair, don't try to figure out how to make everybody feel like they belong by creating spaces where that can be possible. You keep doing what you're doing. Because the way I feel about it is, this probably the last time I'm going to try to convince anybody anything. I'm just going to bring the 50 pounds of ice, child. It's Filter Free Friday. We got work.